G'day guys, welcome back to the Fon Supercoach YouTube channel. Today we will be reviewing round 10, so let's get into it. As you can see, for me, not a great week. Scored 2,317, slid down 170 ranks, but as you're about to see, it's probably pretty good considering. So let's get into it. First off, I held Tom de Koning, I had Horn Francis, and then I had the Sicily stinker as well, so it is what it is. I did have Horn Francis on my bench, and this is why the hell Aiden Johnson is here. So my original trades were... there's a way to see trades. History, is this it? Trade history, here we go. I know you guys can't see it, but my original trades were Bice and Powell Pepper to Sinclair and Sardell Hawley, which meant that I had to have a forward on the bench. And so I was like, well, JHF has been sick all week. Maybe he puts in a stinker, whereas Caleb Daniel has Richmond. And I was probably going to roll the dice on any of these other ones because they all seemed like good matchups for me, except Petrarca against Brisbane. But I'm going to back Petrarca in more often than not. Now, when Tom de Koning was ruled out, I decided that this probably wasn't a great idea to have two primos on the bench essentially this week and no protection from flex because I have to field de Koning. Part of the way through Saturday's games, I thought this was going to be problematic. So Horn Francis started all right in this first game before he was subbed out on 22 with a hamstring injury. And I was like, geez, I could have had this 22 on the bench. I think Sardell Hawley's going to go well. I was pretty upset. And, you know, at halftime, I thought I was going to be right. I think Sardell Hawley was on 35. And then, lo and behold, Brad Scott subs him off. Not even anywhere near the worst player on the ground for Essendon. There was at least 10 others, including the captain, that were performing worse. So I can't fathom that. I got very lucky in that sense that reversing that was, you know, I didn't get as punished as I could have been because El Hawley was probably going to score 75 or 80. I could have this 22 on the bench and El Hawley instead of that. Obviously, Johnson scored the same, but it was a tougher matchup. I think Melbourne have... I'll just click here. Melbourne have Sydney this week. I don't expect them to go too well against Sydney, but then St Kilda is maybe a fill-up. I don't know. Who knows what you're going to get with St Kilda. So yeah, I think Johnson has decent job security, so that's why I went here instead of Mentha, who would have been a 99k loop. However, the difference in cash between Johnson and Mentha could have been handy this week. I will say that. Anyway, let's get into reviewing the players. Dane Zorko, he was absolutely toweling Melbourne up. He was on about 70 before halftime, then gave away a stupid 50-metre penalty at the end of the first half. It was kind of weird as a supporter. It made a slightly difficult shot, which we were missing a lot of, a guaranteed hit. But as a Supercoach player, I was like, Dane, why would you do that? It was just a stupid 50-metre penalty to give away as well. So yeah, I wasn't too happy with that. Sinclair 130 against West Coast, despite them getting, I would say, soundly beaten. Like they were pretty poor, St Kilda, so that's a good sign. I went Sinclair over Nas in the end because Nas takes off the more challenging kicks generally, which leads to clangers, and Sinclair gets a little bit more contested ball. That eventuated in this game where Nas had a lot of clangers, Sinclair had more contested ball, so the difference in their scores was about 60. That won't work out for me every week, but it did this week, which was nice to see. Ballydale had damn near 50 disposals for a 144, which if you do the maths, that sounds kind of bad, but I think he had 3 contested possessions the whole game. And that's just how Supercoach goes. If you don't get contested possessions, generally you're not going to score, particularly if you're not getting contested marks as well, which is where a lot of these intercept defenders have been good at. Dale's obviously not an intercept defender, but yeah, there was a lot of complaining about Dale's score being low, whereas I didn't really view it being that low. And then Sicily, oh my God, man. I mean, I got 2 good scores before this. I've probably got about a 90 average from Sicily, but gee, that's painful. I could have gone Josh Dacos instead, which would have been much better. Part of the reason for going Sicily was these. So I traded into Sicily after this West Coast game, thinking that Richmond, Melbourne, and Gold Coast would all be good fixtures because they have been easy for defenders to score. What I didn't consider was it being a humidity fest in Darwin, which it's obviously going to be in Darwin, and that is obviously going to happen. So I probably should have considered that. So that was pretty painful. And then next week's probably not great against Brisbane. Can't imagine Brisbane are, 6. And then Collingwood, who knows? So that's pretty frustrating. Probably going to have to move Sicily on at some point, which is pretty bad because I'm running low on trades and there are heaps of problems this week. And then Roberts just butchered the ball again. Has Melbourne this week. So yeah, Melbourne, Adelaide, Richmond before his bye. Going to be pretty hard to get rid of Roberts before that. So yeah, I will be holding. Zach Reid, 75. Unbelievably, this is a down game for Reid now. So that's great. We'll keep him for Richmond, but he will probably go next week. Fonte scored 70, but his opponent had a lot of shots on goal. I think he was playing on Frederick, and Stone was okay in the twos. And there is something else. Yeah, the Giants got smacked at home. So I'm not sure if he'll hold next week, but I am hopeful. I don't think he was bad enough to drop. Matt Carroll, 31. Probably the most painful slow burn ever. Break even of 43 this week against the Giants. There's no way he's hitting that. I mean, this was obvious. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but 60 against West Coast, then 64 against North. And then we get 50s and 30s. Like, this was so obvious. Why did I do this to myself? But there were not many other options, so it is what it is. At least he's made 90k. Could be worse. Brayshaw, so was hard tagged in the first half. Broke it pretty comfortably in the second quarter, and then I think the Giants were just getting belted, so they dropped it. The Giants are kind of a weird team where they're kind of a midfielder down, but so they're using that tagger to try and negate another midfielder, but the capable midfielders are still finding a way to pick them apart and win, which is not really a surprise, I guess, when you're running they're putting a lot of small forwards through there. And no disrespect to those small forwards, they're a lot of good players. I wish Bedford was still at Melbourne. Toby Green's obviously very talented and was a midfielder in his prime. Brent Daniels, those types, they're all very good players. But yeah, it's kind of weird. The Giants midfield's quite weak, particularly with the Finn Callahan injury. So I'm presuming they're going to be an easy matchup. I think they're going to continue tagging, but we'll see. We'll take the 99 from Brayshaw. Also, I'm going to talk about Sarong now because I'm going to mention him later anyway. Sarong went 115 to 120 in this game. I feel like you want a bit of a bigger fill-up than that, given how this game went for Sarong. So Sarong was someone I've been targeting for a while, and I think I can get him after his bye pretty cheap. But the question now is Sarong going to average more than 105 from here on out? I don't know. I think I'll probably end up having to go there anyway. The cash is drying up. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll probably go there anyway. But I am concerned about Sarong. Nick Dacos. So, I did say you shouldn't complain about scores earlier. If you were a Nick Dacos non-owner, you would be scratching your head as to how this wasn't a 70. I just don't know. Sometimes he just scores too well. Far better than he should. It looks like if you didn't trade in Dacos the week he went 170 on Brisbane, and you traded him in after that, this is hurting you. I think it's a 3-round average of about 90. So yeah, that's tough. That is tough. Not what you expect from Dacos, although like 3 pretty random tags. The Crows haven't tagged him before against Dacos. They previously used Keys as the guy who would get off Dacos going the other way and hurt them, which was effective for them. Obviously, the Crows weren't managing to get wins, but I think Keys was going big in those games, and it was seemingly effective. But this week, they went for the hard tag with Neil Bullen. Neil Bullen has done the job before when he played for Melbourne, so it's not really surprising, I guess, but it is a little bit of a shame. However, has North this week. Don't think North will tag. Should be a big bounce back. Jordan Dawson, 132. Wanted a little bit more from this, but it is what it is. Just too many clangers. Like, it feels like every kick off the ground that Dawson does is the most obvious clanger ever. So it is what it is. But good score. Has West Coast this week, so should back it up. Rosie, 91. Heaps of clangers as well. Port was shocking against Geelong, so it's not really surprising, I guess. It is what it is. Still really like Rosie and highly recommend getting on if you don't have him. Horn Francis, hamstring. Initially, it was looking like this was a 1 to 2 weeker. It's now looking like a 4 weeker. So with the buy in there, that is 3 weeks, but I think 3 is enough to justify trading, particularly when your bench looks like mine. I think there are some players will have traded well enough that they're in a decent position to hold Horn Francis. I'm not in that position. I overpaid for Cherry. I think I'm still up on the day cost, but 580 was a lot. Overpaid for Zorko, have Sicily. Like, I've made so many bad trades this year, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And then Chera did hold. Didn't think this would be the matchup that I'd be rewarded for, but we take a 140. Would expect him to not get the Bedford tag this week, assuming that will go to Walsh. So it could be another big score against a pretty depleted Giants midfield. Lindsay, 67, started really poorly, but got going as the Ds did. Has Sydney at the MCG this week. Think he'll go all right. Keen to hold. Clay Hall, the most expensive loop ever. Murray's came on early with all the hamstrings in that Geelong-Port Adelaide game and gave me a 68. So I think he'll hold now, which is pretty crazy. So I think the way it'll work is Burgoyne slides back for Jones and Murray's comes into the starting 22 on the wing. Now, I'm not a Port Adelaide supporter, so I don't know that for certain, but I'm pretty confident that's how it will go. Hustway dropped. Yeah, whatever. I mean, I think there are some Hawthorn fans who think he'll come back, but they're trying to win games. It makes no sense to play him when, they've got more capable midfielders there. So, yeah, I don't know. He's too slow for AFL, I think, but quite good in the contest. But I guess Hawthorn set themselves up in a way that they don't need his expertise in the contest. They need the outside guys. So, yeah, it's pretty unfortunate for Hustwaite. And then Tom Gross, 42. I don't know what this guy has to do to play a full game. There was some Tim Kelly and Elijah Hewitt late game heroics, if you like, that sort of put them above him. But with Owies injured, I'm kind of expecting Gross to play a full game next week. I know I've been saying that for a few weeks now, but fingers crossed we get a full game of Gross. Should be able to give us, I think, 60s in full games, which, it's not great, but if he makes me another 100k, I'll be wrapped. Absolutely wrapped. And then the big fellas in the ruck. Gawn was going pretty poorly until about 10 minutes where it felt like he took 4 contested intercept marks in a row to win the game for Melbourne. So that was a delight to watch, obviously. I was very concerned with the VC and C because obviously Oscar McInerney was laid out before this game and I had the VC on Cherry, who was on 90 at half time. And then when I made this decision to take the C off of Gawn and put it on Hall, he was on 120 at about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. He finished the third quarter on 110, and I was very nervous because he wasn't scoring in the first little bit of the fourth quarter, but he got going, went to 140. And then Gawn was on about 25, 5 minutes into the first quarter, and then just slowed. I think Fort went just to negate instead of actually win the game, which, I mean, that's probably, if you can negate Gawn with Fort, you would take that. So that makes sense to me. But yeah, it resulted in Max not scoring too well, but it is what it is. And then, as I said, Cherry was really good. Some sort of absurd amount of stoppages in this game. So heaps of hit out to advantages, heaps of tackles, all that good stuff. So we love that from T Cherry. No Boyd led in this week. Feels like that rumour gets a run every week. Baz, 156. Cannot believe people faded him. Say it every week, but I just can't believe it. Just runs on top of the ground for the whole game, sprinting like unbelievable player. So tidies up his disposal. He's probably M1 if he tidies up his disposal, to be honest. So that's a scary thought. Petrarca did this again where, same as last week, he sort of faded out of the game in the second half, which is pretty annoying. Had a junk time shot right on the siren pretty much. Would have been a nice extra 5 or 6 points, but it is what it is. And then Rankin, I think he had 10 clangers, 3 shots at goal that went out on the full, a heap of other ones. Just had a bad... He didn't even play that bad. It's just that, obviously, the 3 out on the full shots on goals is dreadful, but just a lot of little things went wrong for him when he actually played pretty well, so pretty frustrating for that one. Could have been a massive score. I don't have Haney, so I haven't spoken to him about him, but Haney went, I think, 2 goals, 5. That could have been a monster score if he kicked all those. He could have had, like, in theory, he kicks all those goals. He's had 7 and 40 nearly, so would have been the most insane stat line I've ever seen. So yeah, probably a little bit of a let off for non-owners there, but I think a lot of people have Rankin. And then McRae, 77 against West Coast is a little bit of a disaster, to be honest. And to make matters worse, there's rumours that he has a back injury. So I don't want to deal with a back injury. I'm going to be completely honest. If he misses 1 to 2 weeks, he's gone. he's probably not going to be more expensive from here on out if he has a back problem. So just getting that out there. If I'm trading McRae if he's out. And then Marriage, 85 against the Saints. West Coast were kind of good. It wasn't really in their defense for that much. So, well played to them. I wasn't really watching this game. I was sort of refreshing the scores during the breaks in the Melbourne-Brisbane game. And I did see Ryan Marshall on about 86 at quarter time. And I was like, what the hell is happening in this game? The Saints weren't even winning. So, yeah, that was staggering. Obviously, great game for Romar. But, yeah, I think Marriage will go all right. He's starting to work out the 1-2s and the defensive half pig behaviour of just screaming for the ball when it's sideways. I really like what I'm seeing from Ryan Marriage. I think he's going to go very well. I'm almost keen to hold him over Caleb Daniel, although that's probably not really a hot take from here. So, really like what I see from Marriage. I think he's actually good, not just in a good role. I think he can actually play the role pretty well. He's a nice kick, so that is good. Caleb Daniel, 97. 97? I thought that was a 91. Yeah, all right, we take that. It was all right in the end. Hopefully he goes all right against Collingwood because I have to hold him this week, is what it is. Caden Cleary, 58 against Carlton. A little bit of a shame, but it is what it is. I think I'm holding this week. Should go okay against Melbourne. And then Johnson, 43. Just slow burn me to 220, Aiden. That's all I ask. To be fair, could have gone a lot better in this game. He missed an absolute sitter in front of goal at the end of the game. So, that could have been a 55-60 with some late game scaling. It would have been a big goal in the context of the game. So that would have been nice. And then TDK injured, held this. Looks like he'll play this week. Briggs is easy to score on, so backing him to bounce back after a week off. All right. What the hell do we do this week? So, Horne-Francis, 3-4. As I said, most people are going to be in a position where they have to trade that. There's going to be some people that don't have to trade it. Now, I'm just going to send him anyway, so let's get this done. So, let's do this. Simpson. All right. So, this is the first trade I'm making. It is kind of forced. Do I field Simpson against Port or Cleary against Melbourne? Yeah, I'll go Cleary against Melbourne. But I don't like how that sounds. I'll probably change my mind 5 minutes before the bounce, so apologies for that. Simpson looked really good. I've been impressed with Simpson. I think Freo have had this problem in the back half where they're really slow, and the only person with any creativity or speed is Jordan Clark. So moving Simpson back there has added some speed that they desperately need at ground level and a bit of contested work like Ryan, Pearce, Cox. There's another one I'm missing. I know Draper's not in there, but those guys are being belted at ground level and they've been belted by faster guys. So it makes sense for Simpson to come in. So I think he holds. I think he played well enough. He kicked a nice goal. The boys got around him, which you love to see. So yeah, that was good. I was very impressed with Simpson. Kind of wishing I went early on him last week, but there's no real rookie options this week. I think the other target that was there is, there's Vicentini and Coleman. Okay, so there's three mid-pricey type targets. Filippo was dreadful in the second half and looks like he dislocated his finger jumper punching someone, so he's off until he can produce a good score. I have no interest in Mateus Filippo. If he went early, that sucks. You would expect him to cash in against West Coast, but it is what it is. He was dropping marks and everything, so just looked really rusty, which you would expect for a guy who's had a fair while off footy. So Kadeen Coleman, I wouldn't go early on either. Really low TOG. And he scored 72, which watching the game, I didn't notice him much. He took some nice intercepts. He had a couple of really nice kicks, but he had some shocking clangers as well. So this is potentially a rust thing as well. There is no way I'd go early on this with Hawthorn next week against, Hawthorn at the G, where that's historically been a danger matchup for Brisbane, even when Hawthorn haven't been good. So we'll probably avoid that for this week. The other one is Dante Vicentini, who looked really good against Rob and looked really average against Geelong. My general rule of thumb is if you're a ruckman and you look average against Geelong and can't put up a good score, I don't want anything to do with you. And that is the case. I know he's only 250k, but it's not like Sweet and Soldo are injured. They're just out of form. And I think that after a bad loss as well. Obviously, if Vizentini gets dropped this week, it won't be so bad. But I'm also expecting a bad loss for Port Adelaide this week against Fremantle. So back to back, they may just decide to flick him off to Luke Jackson. Port Adelaide's rucks have been a roulette in the past, so this is why I would strongly advise against Vizentini. I know people are pretty keen on him. Looks like being a decent cash cow, but I'm not sure he will get there. We've seen Ken in the past even not go for a ruckman. He ran, I think, Dixon and... Was he playing Finlayson in there for a bit? I don't know, but he's done it before. I don't want anything to do with Port Adelaide rucks. That's just... I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. So that's my takes on those. So who to upgrade to? There's actually heaps of good options. So the one I'm going to go... Oh, was I trading Cleary to do this? I was. Oh, but I don't have to now. Could hold Cleary. 62 break even against Melbourne. Scoring has kind of petered off. Adelaide at the SCG and then Richmond before the bye. It's like decent bye cover, but I kind of don't need him for these bye rounds, really. Is there any point in me cashing in Hall here or Huswaite? That's the other thing I've got to consider. Like, I could go Hall. And we go... So I'm going Tom Green here, by the way. In case anyone was wondering. So why am I going Tom Green? I'm not sure if you guys can see the matchups, but Carlton, Richmond, Port. Carlton's probably not a great matchup for him. You could wait a week, but Richmond and Port Adelaide, in the current sense, I think are going to be very good matchups. He then has Brisbane, which is tough, but then he goes Gold Coast, West Coast, Geelong, Essendon, Sydney, which that is 5 very good matchups before one more tough one against the Dogs, and then going North, Gold Coast, and Kilda. Like, that is an unbelievable run. He's going to get Dunkley attention against Brisbane. I don't think he'll get Bergman attention against Port, which could mean the only bad matchup here is Carlton, who he hasn't gone that well on in previously, but he does have a 90 break even, and I kind of just want to get on this. So, yeah, I do like that. I think Tom Green, I've been a massive believer the last couple of years that Tom Green's game is capable of going 120. He hasn't produced it for extended periods, but I'm going to back him in here to do it. He gets after it contested. His spread is not actually that bad. He's not a great kick, but he does get some outside ball, some marks around the ground. There's a lot of chip mark from the Giants. So obviously we see that with Whitfield and Ash, but Green does get involved in that a little bit. So I really like that. The other ones I really like are, so you could go Heaney. I'm concerned about Heaney with Mills coming back. I'm just not sure how they're going to use Mills, so I don't really want Heaney this week. However, Melbourne, Adelaide, Richmond, you would think is a good run. Like a really good run. And then Port Adelaide Oval. They just played Port. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting fixturing. But yeah, you would think Heaney would be up for a good game. His role's been kind of awkward, which is why I'm not personally interested, particularly with Mills coming back. So that's Isaac Heaney. There is Caleb Sarong, but I think at this point you just wait until after the bye. I think it's kind of weird. The games where Sarong has been tagged this year, Freo have looked worse than when Brayshaw has been tagged. So Brayshaw got tagged this week. They won. Although Brayshaw did get tagged round 1 as well when they were shocking. But Sarong has generally struggled to fight. Not like he hasn't been scoring badly, but so look at what we got here. So we had Jordan in round 2. 3 and 4, he was allowed to do what he wanted. Then we had McIntosh in round 5, Viney in round 6, did what he wanted against Adelaide. I don't know if this was a tag in round 8, but did get some attention. And then Collingwood, you'd think, is a good matchup, and the attention went elsewhere against GWS. I'm just not seeing it with Sarong. That's my problem. I want to see it turn around, but he's kind of cheap now, so I'm not sure how I feel about Sarong. The other one at a similar price I like is Noah Anderson, and I'm actually really keen on Anderson and kind of sad that he went so well this week because I wanted him to stay nice and cheap. What do I think is going to happen with Anderson? Now, I'm not sure the Saints will tag, and I know Freo won't. So that's probably two quite large games. However, I think O'Shane Mullen will tag, particularly... Oh, Dangerfield might be back by then. Not that Danger's been playing heaps at mid-time, but it's one less option for Geelong. And then I'm reasonably confident he gets Bedford and Viney in 15 and 16. So, maybe it's fine. Maybe he doesn't get Bedford. Did he get Bedford last year? I want to have a look at last year. Sorry, I'm really umming and ahhing between Anderson and Green. Two picks that I really like. So, let's have a look. Bedford, Adelaide Hills. Did he get Bedford in this game? Was Bedford tagging at this point? I actually don't know. He would have got Bedford here, 59. Yuck. Where's Geelong? 150 in Darwin. Oh, yeah. And Geelong got killed in that game. Oh, boy. The Melbourne tag's not a hard clamp. It is worth noting that. How many hard clamps are here? O'Sheen could be. Because he locked Butters up this week. He was good against Dacos, but Dacos sort of scores anyway. The thing is, I think Freo at home is going to be like a disgustingly big score. Okay, maybe I go Anderson. If the Suns played before the Giants, this would be so easy, but it's last game of the round, and I just know that's a recipe for disaster. Although the Saints haven't tagged recently. Harley Reid went big. Who have the Saints played recently? You can see why I'm indecisive. It's very hard to pick these minefield tags. There was no tag in this game. Like Sarong and Brayshaw got attention, but it wasn't really a tag. I mean, Jordan went to him in this game. How did he go in this game? Also, no one tagged. Was Neil tagged against Brisbane? I don't think he was. I think he just had a stinker, right? No, Neil might have played well. Sorry, I'm rambling. 89. This is one bad game of the season. I might feel around with some price projectors because if he goes well against St Kilda and Fremantle, but poorly against Geelong and GWS, I can get him for about the same price in round 15 as my last upgrade. That would be nice. Interesting. Food for thought. I'll stick with Tom Green for now. So yeah, the other upgrade options I like are... There's one more. Heaney, Sarong, Anderson, Green. No, maybe that's it. Obviously, if you don't have Rankin, I would still go there. Petrarca, I'd still go there, although I think the break-even is high. Yeah, 130, you could probably wait a week. Nick Dacos, I would wait a week. Has North this week, so I expect this break-even to be in danger of being hit, but you generally bet against the 160 break-even. Sinclair, I still really like. If your buy's not bad... So Dale has a great run to the end to the end of the year. It's pretty much every game at Marvel. Has the Suns game been moved? Or GW? Maybe it was GWS. I don't know. But it's literally every game at Marvel. And then one game at the G where he went 140 this year. Obviously, this game against Geelong stinks. Could probably wait a week. But then it's Marvel. SCG won't be great. Can't imagine Gabba will be good. We'll have a look. Did he play here at these venues? Yes, 79 at SCG. No Gabba last year. Dale's interesting as well. If your buy isn't bad, you could consider Dale. Definitely. If you don't have Dawson, would still get on. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Captains, vice captains this week. Very easy for me. We are going Dacos and Dawson against North and West Coast. I think the way that captains are going to go for me from here on out is the first thing I'm going to check. Is the ruck matchup good for Gawn or Cherry? This week, we've got Gawn against Grundy. probably goes well at the MCG. I know the projected's 180, but that's silly. So probably not a great matchup. And Cameron against North, probably not a great matchup either. I do think Cherry is matchup proof, I will say that. But that's one I'm willing to forgo. So what's next? Who do Richmond, North, and West Coast play? So Richmond play Essendon. I'm not interested in Zach Merritt this year. I think the role is weird. And there's a lot of tags coming up for Merritt as well. Nick Martin, you could go there as a pod, but I'm not sure the ceiling is there for Nick Martin to compete with like a Dacos or a Dawson or a Cherry or a Gawn. Obviously, Dawson's been inconsistent, but the ceiling is clearly there. So I probably would avoid that. So not looking at this game. You could say Baz against the Dogs, but that's off a 5-day break. Not massive on that. So who do North play? They play Collingwood. Nick Dacos. Get that on ya. Easy. West Coast, who do they play? They play Adelaide. Jordan Dawson. Get that on ya. You could go Rankin as well. What did Rankin go against them last year? I feel like Rankin kicked 6 against them last year. Nope. I'd be lying. So yeah, probably wouldn't go Rankin against West Coast, but really like Dawson. Who else could you go? I'm not keen. Port's been tagging, so I'm not overly keen on Brayshaw or Sarong. If you had Butters, you could definitely go there, but not many have Butters. I think Dunkley against Hawthorn is probably not too bad. Same with Neil. McGuinness could go to Neil, but you never know. Obviously, if you have Bond, you could go there. That's kind of it, though. Wouldn't touch Marshall against Gold Coast, although you could go Sinclair against Gold Coast. They leak to defend as Gold Coast, so yeah, that is another option. But yeah, that's how I'm lining up for this week. It's not ideal, but yeah, it is what it is. I've still got Huswaite as a loop, so and Boyd, obviously. So I should be able to make this all work. Yeah, let me know how you went last week below in the comments. Let me know who you're targeting with trades. I think it's going to be, particularly if McRae's out, it's going to be an interesting run home because all of a sudden, I think people are going to really look for value because they're not going to have the trades to get all the top liners. And I think the forward line has historically been a place where you can get value. We see Coleman coming back cheap. We're about to see Mills come back cheap. Can one of these guys be a primo for us off of injury? So lots to consider. I know I'm very keen on Mills. I did have him traded in 2 weeks ago before he was even named. So that is what it is. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know how you went, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.